Well, our next guest says everything from AI voice changers to software development tools have been helping hackers, but he also thinks AI could be the key to defense. Joining us now is David Kennedy, TrustedSec's founder and CEO. David, it's good to see you, and it feels like AI wins either way here because it's both creating the problem and creating the solutions.
Yeah, Kelly, Tyler, thanks for having me on today. You're absolutely right. It's a conundrum because there's not a lot of regulations, rules, and laws, but regardless, hackers aren't going to abide by them in the first place. And what we've seen is that, since AI, which has been around, by the way, for a number of years, the advancements, though, continue to move rapidly fast, and hackers are innovative. They think of new ways of doing things, and we've seen everything from ransom cases where they actually call somebody up impersonating a daughter. It sounds like their daughter, 2 o'clock in the morning, kidnapped, demanding $50,000, and, turns out their daughter's at home sleeping, but they have no idea because the voice is exactly the same, the mannerisms. It's definitely increasing at an exponential rate, and defense has to do that as well. And enterprises are already behind. We really need to play a catch up here.
And it sounds like it's going to be expensive. And I think that's why we've sort of showed these cybersecurity stocks. Do you think, and I think this is really important, a lot of businesses are going to hear this and get scared, but we don't want to scare them into paying for something they don't need. So what do they really need to be prepared for here? What should they be spending on and how should they spend it?
That's a great question. What most companies really struggle with is visibility in their own environment and understanding what these patterns look like from hackers. Well, you might hear AI, starting to create prototypes for things like code and malware that, become harder to detect. They're still using techniques that hackers have traditionally used for over 20 years. It's just changed and spun a little bit differently. So when you're focusing on trying to defend, you look at the recent MGM hack where hackers used, AI voice modulation to social engineer the help desk. And then from there, they're able to hack. Well, the social engineering may happen, but the patterns that happen after that, getting access to the systems and then spreading across like wildfire across their enterprise, those are things that we need to be prepared with. So the best defense really is visibility and understanding how these attackers are compromising so that you can shut down the attack in early stages and not seeing these, catastrophic breaches that we see for these large and medium-sized and small businesses across the world.
Who's got the lead right now? Who's got the leverage long-term? And can the good guys win?
I do think the good guys can definitely win, and we are winning. It's much harder to hack into corporations today than it was 10 or 15 years ago. There's been so many different advancements on the protection. The issue that you run into is that, when you look at a lot of these companies, they're 30, 40, 50, 100 years old. And so they're using, legacy systems. They're using systems that, haven't been touched in 50 years. You look at our critical infrastructure. These things take time to kind of progress and move away from old ways of thinking and to more modern day defenses. And that will happen. It's just going to be a lot of pain and suffering, I think, until we get to there. But we are doing really good at defense. Companies are getting better. It is a priority. Board members talking about it. It's just going to take some time to kind of continue to build those defenses and continue to keep up pace with hackers.
And the cost of cyber insurance has obviously been a sore point and a big one for a lot of companies. Real quickly, what about for people, David? Because a lot of the tricks you mentioned are also being deployed person to person within families. A lot more people seem to be using social media to kind of scam. What should people do?
Yeah, I'd heavily recommend right now the biggest one that we're seeing is these ransomware ones where they call you impersonating a sibling or a parent or a spouse and using their voice. And it only takes a few minutes or a few seconds of having their voice to actually create the mannerisms that you would hear on the phone that you're talking to somebody.
It's crazy.
And I know this is going to sound crazy, but you have to have a challenge word with your family members that they can say on the phone that validates who they are as an individual or person, because it's coming to the point where you can't tell whether or not they're there. The case that we dealt with last.
Question for you. So if I know, and I've heard people saying this, you have to have you call it a challenge word, some code word that you and your family know means you're talking to the real person. What if I get a spam call and they say, what's the challenge word? And I tell them, but then they use that to go break. You know what I'm saying? Can't they just do that?
Yeah, it's more so when you're having dialogue with somebody that right? So if you're talking to your daughter or your son or your spouse, they would have to say that to validate who they are on the phone. I know that sounds crazy again, but in a situation where you're seeing like, hey, I'm kidnapped. Well, that's a good, spot to use that type of word and have those established within your family.
Right.
The one that we dealt with last week, they had combed their social media sites and they knew that the daughter was actually going to a play. So they actually mentioned that the daughter was coming from a play, and that's when they kidnapped her. So it was real. The parents, had no reason to believe that it wasn't. These types of situations, unfortunately, these are the only ways we can really combat it right now because it's getting very believable.
All right, David, thank you very much. David Kennedy,
Alarming.
TrustedSec. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
And